In this video, we're going to cut some layers with a razor and texturizing shear. As you can see, my client here has very straight, fine hair, and it's the color that shows every cut line. So, to begin, I want to part the hair off into 4 panels, separating the front from the back, and then establishing your perimeter line in the back. You want to do that by creating a horizontal section across the back, and I'm using a razor here to create my length. Instead of using a scissor, I'm using a razor, just feathering off the ends here. That way you get not such a blunt line on the bottom. It gives you a really soft, piecey perimeter. And you can see I'm just kind of holding the section that I'm going to cut with my fingers and bringing it down a little bit past my guide that I can see through the hair, and then setting the razor mirroring the diagonal of my section and just kind of feathering it off. You can see it just gives this soft piecey edge here. That way you don't get a really blunt line. Now moving into the side of the head, taking a horizontal section across the side of the head. As you can see, I tilted her head off to the side so I can see what I'm doing. And here again, just lightly feathering it off. And when you hold it between your finger and your second finger, and then kind of pulling it down a little bit, and then placing the razor above your finger, and then lightly feathering it off. Now, if you notice when I set the razor on the hair, it's not going straight into the hair. It's you're kind of beveling it off. If you've ever as a child used a knife and kind of carved soap, it's kind of the same aspect here that you're going to use with a razor. It just kind of feathers it off and gives it a soft edge. It also helps encourage hair that is so straight that it just wants to fall flat. It encourages it to want to kind of bend under a little bit and give the perimeter a little bit of, not only a soft perimeter, but it gives it a little bit of movement, a little bit of direction here. Then as you're moving around to the front, once we've established the perimeter in the back and the sides, you want to go back in and I'm going to create a fringe on her. And here I'm just kind of letting the hair talk to me, trying to find her frontal bone. That is going to be, when you're parting it off, you want to make sure when you part it off, you don't go past the edge of the eyebrow. Here I'm just establishing my guide in the center, because her hair is very straight here, and I want to kind of get it to want to move from one side to the other. Sort of like a curtain bang. So I'm just creating a little guide in the center, and then working off that guide and bringing the rest of the sections over to it, kind of in a pivoting pattern. And I'm just holding my razor using the very edge of it and just very lightly just feathering it off. I'm going down vertically in the hair. Same way that we held it in the cutting the perimeter. You're holding it between your finger and your second finger. And you can kind of see a little bit better on this side. I'm kind of holding it and then pulling it out a little bit so where I can see my guide, and then feathering down with the very tip of my razor. And just a little key point here, if you were to come up and kind of tap that razor, it would probably fall out of my hand. So that's just something I wanted to share with you. Don't hold on to the razor so tight. I know when we're first learning, we tend to hold on super tight. So I just wanted to throw that in there to be aware. Hold it really lightly, almost like if you were holding a pencil. Here I'm just going back in a little bit and double checking, making sure I'm even on both sides. And then I'm going to comb the sides down here. You want to kind of blend in the sides and give it a little face frame. I've chosen here to kind of have that face frame start at her lip. She likes to pull her hair back as well, so I was kind of being very respectful of the length there. And there again, just kind of holding it. Cutting with a razor is very kind of free form, It's something that you kind of let the hair talk to you, and you can see how I'm just very lightly holding it with my fingers. I'm making sure that I'm not going higher than her lip, and I'm just kind of using the tip of my razor and just kind of feathering the hair off and then combing it and looking at it as I go. Once you've established your guide around the back, the perimeter, around the face, your face frame, then you want to go in and create layers. Now, to start off my layers, I am choosing to point cut here. I like to create a guide down the top all the way down through the center. And I'm choosing to do deep point cuts here, just simply because it doesn't give me a blunt line. And opening and closing the razor a lot right here takes tons of time. So I'm just saving a little bit of time because I will be going back in with the texturizing shear and softening that line. But you saw me hold up that little point there at the crown. Basically what I want you to see here is I'm kind of cutting a square on her head, a square shape. I pulled it straight up from the head on the top, created a guide all the way back to the crown, and then I used that crown guide and pulled it straight out from the head, and then took that guide. You can see here I'm going to pull it straight out, and I'm going to bring it all the way down to the length at the perimeter. So I'm establishing a guide down the center. That way, as I work my way around the head, I have a guide. As you can see here, I am using a traveling guide with me. I'm taking it all the way through around the head. I like this viewpoint here because I think it's really important to work in clean sections. Cutting layers is very easy to get lost in, especially on thicker hair like this. Even though her hair is fine, it's thick and it's easy to get lost in it. And so by using your sectioning so that you could always see your guide, because you're using a traveling guide, it enables you not to get lost in your haircut by working cleanly like this. So you can see I worked in a pivot around the back of the head. As I moved to the side of the head, I went vertical sections, and then as I got kind of to the frontal bone, the round of the head, I kind of started working on a pivot again, just to make sure that I didn't cut off the perimeter, the face frame that we created in the beginning. This, you'll understand a little bit more here. I'm taking that guide that I created down the center, and I'm working on the opposite side of the head, and then working my way down. Now, as you can see, I take more of a guide in my hand than the section I'm going to cut. That just keeps me from getting lost in my haircut and keeps me on point with my cutting. So here's what I'm talking about. I'm working on a pivot, just like if I was, just like a pie. So even though we're using a traveling guide, when you're working on the round of the head, it just makes more sense to work with the round of the head. So by working in a pivoting section here, it just keeps you from cutting hair that you don't want to cut. Sometimes when I'm talking on these videos, I get kind of a little bit tongue-tied. So here again, yes, I am point cutting. I do this when I'm establishing the length of my layers. You will see later in this video how I go back in with my texturizing shears and really soften that up. On hair like this, I don't ever use a blunt blade. This is the color of hair, kind of a dishwater blonde, and the hair that's really straight and fine, that it can make you crazy when you're cutting it with a regular blade. You can just see all the cut lines when it's dry. So first I'm establishing my length. It's much quicker to just go through and do deep point cutting here so that I don't see any lines, but you want to remove the length first. Could you do it with a texturizing shear? Absolutely. You just have to open and close the texturizing shear so many times to get the hair cut off that it hurts your fingers. Here I'm just going back in, just double checking. I always recommend after you're finished, go back in the opposite way that you cut and check your layers. So here's where we're going to use our texturizing shear. You're going to do it with the dry. I dried the hair so I could see my layers. Just going in with the texturizing shear. Going back in just the way I did it before, using my fingers kind of like a claw, pulling it up in the same sectioning I took before. Just going in maybe about a ½ inch to 1 inch in those ends, and just literally using my razor and point cutting. Now you notice I'm going in in an angle. I'm not going straight in and just cutting vertically with it. Reason being is I don't want to see any lines. I want these layers to be invisible. I want the hair to move. And if you go in mirroring the section you're taking, the vertical section, and just cut straight off, you are going to end up with lines within it. So see here, you can just see I go in at an angle and just keep opening and closing my blade, and it just really, really softens those layers. This is a fabulous technique for those clients that tend to show every cut line. Using your texturizing shear like this is awesome. Just key point here, just make sure that you're using small sections, as you can see here. I'm working on a pivot here, but also just going in. You can see how I'm just being very careful just to go in on those ends and just really soften those ends. And you can see I open and close the shears a few times, drop the hair and look at it. Super important, because it's so easy to cut too much. This is where your eye comes in. Step back from your work a little bit, look at it, and see if you like how it's laying. You can see here as I'm working, I'm visually checking. I'm looking at it and saying, okay, where do I need to take a little bit out? Where is it looking a little bit choppy? Where is it looking a little bit thick? Where do I need to add a little bit more movement? And then going in and then softening it and then stepping back from it. Periodically, I'm looking at it in the mirror and seeing what it looks like visually from afar. That makes a huge difference. Sometimes we get so tied up in our work and we're so up close in it, we can't see what we're doing as well. It's to see the effects of what we're creating. So don't forget to step back from your work a little bit. And don't forget to not keep opening and closing. Open and close it, stop, step back, and check it, and visually check it. And look how beautiful and soft that comes out. See the movement that's created here? Happy girl. Anyway, I hope these tips help. If so, be sure to hit the subscribe button and share it with somebody that you think this might benefit.